Arjun's alarm didn't go off that morning. Or maybe it did. And he was so exhausted from staying up all night preparing that he slept right through it. Either way, when he finally opened his eyes, the clock showed 6:15 a.m., and his heart nearly stopped. The train was at 6:45, the interview was at 10, and Pune was 3 hours away. He jumped out of bed so fast that he nearly tripped over his own feet. His mother was already awake in the kitchen, brewing tea like she did every morning. She took one look at his panicked face and understood immediately. "Go, go! I'll pack something for you to eat on the way," she said, already moving toward the kitchen. But Arjun didn't have time. He grabbed his folder with all the interview documents, threw on the shirt he'd ironed the night before, and rushed out the door. His mother's voice followed him down the stairs. Something about breakfast and being careful, but he was already gone. The streets of Mumbai were already awake and buzzing. Auto rickshaws honked. Street vendors were setting up their stalls, and the smell of fresh vada pav filled the air. Any other day Arjun might have stopped to grab one. Today he just ran. His mind was racing faster than his feet. This interview at the construction company in Pune wasn't just another job opportunity. It was his last hope. 6 months. That's how long he'd been unemployed. 6 months of sending out resumes, attending interviews, and hearing the same thing over and over. "You're qualified, but we're looking for someone with more experience. Or worse, we'll let you know." Which really meant they wouldn't. 6 months of watching his mother skip meals so there'd be enough food for him and his younger sister. 6 months of seeing the medical bills pile up on the kitchen table, the ones for his mother's diabetes treatment that they couldn't fully afford. 6 months of his sister, Priya, asking if she'd have to drop out of college because they couldn't pay the fees. This job would fix everything. The salary was decent, the company was reputable, and most importantly, they seemed genuinely interested in hiring him. The HR manager had called him personally, said his portfolio impressed them, said they were looking forward to meeting him. All he had to do was show up on time and not mess it up, and now he was going to be late for the train. Arjun pushed through the morning crowd, his dress shoes slipping on the damp pavement. Someone yelled at him for bumping into their cart, but he didn't stop to apologize. The station was still 10 minutes away, and he had less than 15 minutes before the train left. His shirt was already sticking to his back with sweat. So much for looking professional. He'd planned everything so carefully the night before. Wake up at 5:30, have a calm breakfast with his mother. Reach the station by 6:30, board the train with time to spare, maybe even review his presentation notes during the journey. Instead, he was sprinting through the streets like a madman, probably looking like he'd just run a marathon. The station finally came into view. Arjun's lungs were burning. His legs felt like they might give out any second, but he pushed harder. He could see the big clock tower above the entrance. 6:42 a.m., 3 minutes. He could still make it. He flew up the stairs, dodging people left and right, mumbling apologies he didn't have time to deliver properly. Platform 3. That's where the Deccan Queen always departed from. He knew because he'd checked 3 times last night just to be sure. The platform was crowded with morning travelers, people saying goodbye to family, vendors selling chai and newspapers. Arjun pushed through them all, his eyes scanning desperately for the train. And then he saw it. Or rather, he saw the back of it pulling away from the platform, gathering speed. No. No. He ran to the edge of the platform as if getting closer would somehow bring the train back. The red tail lights grew smaller and smaller until they disappeared completely into the morning mist. A few other people stood there too, probably having missed the same train, all wearing the same expression of defeat. Arjun just stood there, frozen. His folder slipped from his sweaty hands and hit the ground, papers scattering. He didn't even bend down to pick them up at first. What was the point? The interview was at 10 a.m. sharp. Even if he caught the next train, which wouldn't be for another 2 hours, he'd reach Pune by noon. The job would be gone. This chance would be gone, everything would be gone. Someone tapped his shoulder. It was a young kid, maybe 12 or 13, holding out his scattered papers. "Uncle, your documents," the boy said. Arjun took them mechanically, barely registering the gesture. The platform was starting to empty now. People moved on with their lives, catching other trains, going to other places. But Arjun couldn't move. His feet felt like they were stuck to the concrete. 6 months of hope, of believing that things would get better. of telling his mother not to worry and his sister that everything would be fine. All of it came crashing down in that moment. He thought about calling the HR manager, explaining what happened, begging for another chance. But he already knew how that conversation would go. They had other candidates. They had people who showed up on time. They didn't need someone who couldn't even catch a train. Arjun finally moved to one of the benches and sat down heavily. The morning sun was getting stronger and the platform was heating up. A few pigeons pecked at some scattered crumbs nearby, completely unbothered by the human drama unfolding around them. He envied them. Birds didn't have to worry about job interviews or medical bills or disappointing everyone who depended on them. An old woman with a tea stall nearby had been watching him. She shuffled over carrying a small clay cup of chai. "Beta, you missed your train?" she asked kindly, already knowing the answer. She placed the cup in his hands. "Drink this. There's another train in 2 hours." "Thank you, Auntie," Arjun managed to say, though his voice came out rough. "But I had an interview. I needed to be there by 10. The old woman nodded sympathetically. She'd probably seen hundreds of people miss trains over the years, each with their own urgent reasons, their own personal disasters. "Sometimes these things happen for a reason," she said, patting his shoulder before returning to her stall. Arjun wanted to believe her. He really did. But sitting there on that platform, with his future slipping away like that train into the distance, it was hard to see any reason in it at all. It just felt like bad luck, like the universe had decided to kick him when he was already down. He took a sip of the chai. It was too sweet and too hot, but somehow it helped a little. Not enough to fix anything, but enough to make the moment slightly less unbearable. Around him, life at the station continued. Announcements blared from speakers. Vendors called out their wares, trains came and went. And Arjun sat there wondering what he was going to tell his mother. Wondering how he'd explain to his sister that college might not be possible after all. Wondering if he'd ever catch a break, or if this was just how his life was going to be. Always running, always trying, always just a little too late. He had no idea that the woman who was about to sit down next to him in a few minutes would change everything. He had no idea that missing this train would turn out to be the best thing that ever happened to him. Right now, all he knew was disappointment, heavy and real, settling into his bones like the humid Mumbai heat. Sometimes the worst moments of our lives are actually doorways to something better. But when you're standing in that moment when you're watching your dreams disappear like a train into the fog, you can't see that yet. You just feel the loss. Arjun was still sitting on that bench staring at nothing in particular when he heard someone running. The footsteps were quick and urgent, the sound of expensive heels clicking rapidly against the platform floor. He looked up just in time to see a well-dressed woman in her 50s rushing past him, her purse swinging wildly, her phone pressed to her ear. She reached the edge of the platform and stopped abruptly, just like he had done minutes before. Her shoulders dropped. She'd missed the train too. The woman stood there for a moment, then turned around slowly. Her face was composed, the kind of face that was used to staying calm in difficult situations. But Arjun could see the worry in her eyes. She was dressed in an elegant navy blue suit, the kind that spoke of corporate meetings and important decisions. Her hair was neatly tied back, and she carried herself with the confidence of someone who usually had everything under control. Right now, though she looked just as lost as he felt, she walked back toward the benches, still talking on her phone. "No, I missed it. The traffic was impossible. Yes, I know how important this is. Can you call the hospital and let them know I'll be late?" She paused, listening. "I don't know, maybe noon. There's another train at 8:45. Hospital." The word caught Arjun's attention. He glanced at her again and noticed the slight tremor in her free hand, the way she kept glancing at her watch. Whatever she was rushing to, it wasn't just important. It was personal. The woman ended the call and sat down on the bench, leaving one person's worth of space between them. She let out a long breath, then noticed Arjun's interview folder lying next to him on the bench. Their eyes met briefly. "You missed it too?" she asked. Arjun nodded. "Job interview in Pune, had to be there by 10. "I'm sorry," she said, and she sounded like she genuinely meant it. "My daughter has a medical appointment. The specialist could only see her today." She shook her head. "I was literally 5 minutes away." 5 minutes. The traffic signal at the last crossing just wouldn't turn green. There was something oddly comforting about sitting next to someone who understood exactly how he felt. Misery loves company, they say, but it's more than that. When you're going through something difficult, knowing you're not alone in it somehow makes the burden lighter. What kind of job? The woman asked after a moment of silence. Junior civil engineer position, Arjun replied. At a construction firm in Pune. Not a big role, but it would have been a start. Would have been. They won't wait for me. I'll get there hours late. He picked up his folder and opened it, showing her his carefully prepared documents. I spent 3 days working on this presentation. Researched the company, prepared answers to every possible question, even bought a new shirt. He gave a bitter laugh. And I ruined it all by missing my alarm. The woman looked at his documents with interest. Civil engineering. That's a solid field. What's your specialty? Arjun wasn't sure why he was opening up to a complete stranger, but something about her made it easy to talk. Maybe it was because they were both stuck in the same situation, both victims of bad timing and Mumbai traffic, or maybe it was because she genuinely seemed interested. I'm really interested in sustainable urban planning, he said. Affordable housing that doesn't just pack people into concrete boxes, you know? Buildings that actually consider the environment and the community, but that's more of a passion project. Right now, I'd take any job just to help my family. The woman nodded thoughtfully. How long have you been searching? 6 months. The words came out heavier than he intended. 6 months of applications and interviews and rejections. My mother is diabetic and needs regular treatment. My sister is in college and the fees are due next month. This job was going to solve all of that. He stopped himself, suddenly embarrassed. Why was he dumping all of this on a stranger? Sorry, I don't know why I'm telling you all this. Don't apologize, the woman said firmly. Sometimes it helps to talk to someone who isn't involved in your life. No judgment, no advice you didn't ask for. She smiled slightly. I'm Meera, by the way. Meera Kapoor. Arjun Sharma. They shook hands formally, which seemed almost funny given the circumstances. Here they were. 2 people brought together by missing the same train, introducing themselves like they were at a business meeting. Meera's phone rang again. She glanced at the screen and answered immediately. Yes, Beta? Don't know, I'm fine. I'll catch the next train. I know you're nervous, but Dr. Reddy is one of the best. Listen to me, everything is going to be okay. This is just a consultation, remember? We're just getting his opinion. She listened for a while, her expression softening. I love you too. I'll be there as soon as I can. When she hung up, Arjun could see the worry etched deeper into her face. My daughter, Ananya, she explained. She's been having some health issues. Nothing life-threatening, but serious enough that we need to consult a specialist. And of course, the best one is in Pune, and he could only fit us in today. I hope everything goes well, Arjun said sincerely. Thank you. Meera looked at her watch again, calculating. The next train gets to Pune at 11. Your interview was at 10, right? Have you tried calling them? Arjun shook his head. What's the point? They have other candidates. Why would they wait for someone who couldn't even show up on time? Because sometimes honesty and communication matter more than we think, Meera said. Make the call. Explain what happened. The worst they can say is no, which is where you already are anyway. She had a point. Arjun pulled out his phone and stared at it for a moment. The HR manager's number was saved. His finger hovered over the call button. What would he even say? Sorry, I missed my alarm. It sounded so unprofessional, so irresponsible. But Meera was right. He had nothing to lose, he made the call. It rang 3 times before someone picked up. Good morning, this is Rahul Mehta. Good morning, sir. This is Arjun Sharma. I had an interview scheduled with you at 10 o'clock today. His mouth was dry. I'm calling because I missed my train from Mumbai. I'm terribly sorry. I know this is unprofessional, but I wanted to let you know rather than just not showing up. There was a pause on the other end. Arjun could hear papers shuffling. I see. Well, I appreciate you calling, Arjun. Unfortunately, we have a tight schedule today. We're interviewing 5 candidates back to back, and we really can't push things around. Arjun's heart sank. I understand, sir. I'm very sorry for wasting your time. However, Rahul continued, your portfolio was quite impressive. If you're still interested, I can schedule you for a phone interview next week, and if that goes well, we could arrange an in-person meeting later. It wasn't the same as the job he might have gotten today, but it was something. A lifeline. Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, sir. I really appreciate this second chance. They set up a time for the following Tuesday, and when Arjun hung up, he felt like he could breathe again. Not completely better, but better than before, see? Mira said with a smile. Always worth making the call. Thank you for pushing me to do that, Arjun said. I probably wouldn't have if you hadn't suggested it. They sat in silence for a while, watching people move around the station. A family with 3 small children struggled with their luggage. A group of college students laughed about something on someone's phone. An old couple walked hand in hand, moving slowly but steadily toward their platform. Life continued, indifferent to their individual struggles. So, affordable housing, Mira said suddenly. Tell me more about your ideas. Arjun was surprised by the question, but he found himself wanting to share. He started talking about the projects he'd studied in college, about innovative designs he'd seen in small European countries, about how Indian cities were growing so fast but not smart enough. He talked about rainwater harvesting systems, community gardens on rooftops, buildings designed to stay cool naturally without relying heavily on air conditioning. Mira listened intently, asking questions that showed she actually understood what he was talking about. She wasn't just being polite. She genuinely knew about urban planning. You've clearly thought about this a lot, she said. These aren't just textbook ideas. You've actually studied real communities. I grew up in a small apartment complex, Arjun explained. 12 families sharing one building. I saw how design affects daily life. How a little bit of open space can become a place where neighbors actually talk to each other. How proper ventilation can reduce electricity bills. Small things that make a big difference when you're living on a tight budget. Mira nodded slowly, looking at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. Arjun, can I ask you something? What if I told you there might be another opportunity? Not the job you were going to interview for, but something different? Arjun's heart skipped. What do you mean? But before Mira could answer, her phone rang again. She glanced at it and stood up quickly. I need to take this. One moment. She walked a few steps away, and Arjun could see her having an intense conversation with someone. She kept looking at her watch, then at the station clock, clearly trying to make some decision. When she came back, her expression had changed. She looked determined. Arjun, I'm going to hire a cab to Pune. It'll take about 3 hours. Maybe a bit more depending on traffic, but I'll get there in time for my daughter's appointment. She paused. Come with me. Arjun stared at Mira, not sure he'd heard correctly. What? No, I can't. That's too much. I don't even know you, and you're dealing with your daughter's health situation. I can't impose like that. Mira was already pulling out her phone. You're not imposing. I'm offering. Besides, I could use the company on the drive. Sitting alone for 3 hours worrying about Ananya will just make me anxious. She looked at him directly. And honestly, Arjun, I want to continue our conversation. You have ideas worth hearing, and I might be able to help with that opportunity I mentioned. But a cab all the way to Pune must be expensive. I can afford it, Mira said simply, not in a boastful way, just stating a fact. And you need to get to Pune, so let's not overthink this. Arjun hesitated for just a moment longer before nodding. What did he have to lose at this point? The original interview was already gone. And there was something about Mira that felt trustworthy, like meeting someone who just understands your wavelength right away. 20 minutes later, they were in the back of a white Toyota Innova, pulling out of the station parking lot. The driver, a middle-aged man named Prakash, had initially quoted an astronomical price, but Mira had negotiated him down to something reasonable with the firm efficiency of someone who'd done this before. Mumbai traffic was its usual chaotic self. Horns blared, bikes weaved between cars, and auto rickshaws seemed to pop up out of nowhere. But slowly, they made their way toward the highway. So, Mira said once they were moving steadily, you mentioned you studied these affordable housing projects. Where did you go to college? Government College of Engineering, Pune, Arjun replied. Not one of the fancy IITs or NITs, but it was a good program. I graduated 2 years ago with decent marks, did my internship at a construction firm in Mumbai. Then my father passed away suddenly, heart attack, and everything changed. He hadn't meant to share that last part, but somehow it came out naturally. Mira's expression softened with understanding. I'm sorry for your loss. Thank you. It's been 3 years now, but my mother still struggles with it. He was the one who always handled everything, you know? The finances, the big decisions, the planning. When he died, we realized how much we'd depended on him, and that's when I understood that I needed to step up, be that person for my family. But finding a job that pays enough has been harder than I expected. The car hit a particularly rough patch of road, and they both bounced in their seats. Prakash apologized and slowed down a bit. "You mentioned your sister is in college?" Mira asked. "Yes, Priya. She's doing her BCom second year. She's brilliant, really. Way smarter than I ever was. She wants to become a chartered accountant." Arjun smiled despite himself. She's already planning her future, talking about which firms she'll apply to, how she'll save money to start her own practice someday. "I don't want to be the reason her dreams get cut short." "You won't be," Mira said with quiet confidence. "I can tell you're the kind of person who finds a way." They drove in silence for a while, watching Mumbai slowly give way to the outskirts, and then to more open highway. The morning sun was bright now, and the landscape rolled past in shades of green and brown. "Can I ask what kind of work you do?" Arjun finally asked. "You seem to know a lot about urban planning," Mira smiled. "I run an urban development consultancy, Kapoor & Associates. We work with both government bodies and private developers on sustainable city planning, affordable housing projects, infrastructure development, that sort of thing." Arjun felt his eyes widen. Kapoor & Associates wasn't just any firm. It was one of the most respected consultancies in Western India. He'd read about their projects during college, studied their work on a transit-oriented development project in Ahmedabad. "Wait, you're that Mira Kapoor? You did the redevelopment project in Dharavi? The one that actually let people stay in their community instead of displacing them?" Now it was Mira's turn to look surprised. "You know about that project? Are you kidding? We studied it in our urban planning elective. It was revolutionary. Most slum redevelopment projects just push people out to the edges of the city, but your approach kept the community intact while improving living conditions. It was brilliant." Mira looked genuinely pleased. "That project is very close to my heart. It took 5 years from planning to execution, and there were so many obstacles. But seeing those families in their new homes, still surrounded by their neighbors, still close to their jobs, that made every bureaucratic nightmare worth it." "I have about 100 questions about that project," Arjun said, his earlier disappointment temporarily forgotten in the excitement of talking to someone he'd essentially studied in school. "Then ask away," Mira said. "We have about 2.5 more hours to kill." And so Arjun did. He asked about stakeholder management, about funding models, about how they convinced the government to try something new. Mira answered each question thoughtfully, sometimes asking Arjun what he thought before sharing her own approach. She didn't talk down to him or make him feel inexperienced. Instead, she engaged with his ideas, challenged some of his assumptions, validated others. The conversation flowed so naturally that Arjun almost forgot he was talking to someone so accomplished. Mira had a way of making complex things sound simple, of taking jargon-heavy concepts and explaining them like she was chatting with a friend. "The biggest challenge isn't the technical stuff," she said at one point. "Engineers can always figure out how to make a building stand up. The real challenge is understanding what people actually need, not what we think they need. That requires spending time in communities, listening more than talking, being willing to adjust your plans based on what you learn." "That's exactly what I think," Arjun said, perhaps a bit too enthusiastically. "Sorry, in my final year project, I proposed a housing design for low-income families, and my professor kept telling me it was too expensive, that poor people don't need certain amenities. But I did this whole cost analysis showing that things like proper ventilation and natural light actually reduce long-term healthcare costs and electricity bills. It's not luxury, it's smart economics. Did your professor approve the project?" "Eventually, yes. But he wasn't happy about it. He gave me a B+, which, fine. But his comment was that I was being idealistic and the real world doesn't work that way." Mira shook her head. "I hate that argument. The real world doesn't work a certain way, because we keep doing things the same way. Someone has to push for change or nothing ever improves." They stopped at a highway dhaba for a quick break. Mira insisted on buying breakfast, and they sat under a tree eating hot parathas and drinking masala chai. The food was simple but delicious, the kind that tastes better when you're eating it roadside rather than in a fancy restaurant. "My daughter tells me I work too much," Mira said, watching trucks rumble past on the highway. "She's probably right. After my husband died 7 years ago, work became my way of coping. I threw myself into projects, stayed late at the office, took on more clients than I should have." She paused. And now when she needs me, I almost missed being there because I was stuck in traffic rushing from one meeting to another. You're here now, Arjun said quietly. That's what matters, true. Mira finished her chai. Ananya wants to become a doctor. She's in her final year of medical school. This health issue she's dealing with, it's chronic but manageable. Some kind of autoimmune condition that flares up occasionally. We've seen specialists before. But Dr. Reddy in Pune is supposed to be the best for her specific situation. She's nervous about what he might say, about whether it'll affect her ability to practice medicine. She sounds strong, like her mother, Mira smiled. She's stronger than me, honestly. When her father died, I fell apart, but she was the one who kept pushing me to get back to work, to keep the company going. She was only 17, and she was the one giving me pep talks. She looked at Arjun. Family makes us stronger, doesn't it? Even when we're trying to be strong for them. Yeah, Arjun agreed. Exactly. They got back in the car and continued the journey. The landscape had changed now, becoming hillier as they approached Pune. Prakash, the driver, played old Hindi songs on the radio at a low volume, and the familiar melodies filled the comfortable silence. About 45 minutes from Pune, Mira's phone rang. She answered it immediately. Hello? Yes, we're almost there. What, when did this happen? Her voice sharpened with concern. Okay, stay calm. Did you call them back? All right, I'll handle it. Just breathe, Beta. When she hung up, her expression had changed. She looked frustrated and worried at the same time. What happened? Arjun asked. Ananya's appointment got moved up. Dr. Reddy had an emergency with another patient, so he's rescheduling everyone. She can either see him at 11:30 today or wait 3 weeks for the next available slot. Mira checked her watch. We'll get there by 11:15 if traffic cooperates. Barely enough time. We'll make it, Arjun said with more confidence than he felt. But then Mira's phone rang again. This time when she answered, Arjun could hear a male voice on the other end and Mira's face fell. No, absolutely not. We discussed this last week. I told you we needed that permit by today. I understand there are procedures, but this is already delayed by 2 months. She rubbed her forehead, a gesture of pure frustration. Fine, I'll be there in person on Monday. But this project is time-sensitive, and these delays are costing real money. She hung up and let out a long breath. Sorry you had to witness that. Government bureaucracy at its finest. Big project? Arjun asked. Huge. Affordable housing development in Navi Mumbai. We have funding, we have approvals from 6 departments, but one clerk in one office is sitting on one permit because, and I quote, the file needs more reviewing. She shook her head. Sometimes I wonder why I keep doing this. The moment you try to build something that actually helps people, the system finds a way to slow you down. But you do it anyway, Arjun observed. I do it anyway, Mira confirmed. Because what's the alternative? Give up? Let someone else build poorly designed, overpriced housing that'll fall apart in 10 years? She looked at Arjun. That's actually the project I wanted to talk to you about. Arjun's heart started beating faster. He tried to keep his expression neutral, professional, but inside he felt like a kid who'd just been told he could pick anything he wanted from a toy store. The Navi Mumbai project? He asked carefully. Yes, it's a partnership between the State Housing Board and my firm. We're designing residential units for 5,000 families, all in the lower income bracket. It's not just housing, though. We're creating a complete community, schools, healthcare centers, parks, local markets. The idea is that people shouldn't have to travel 2 hours to get to work or to buy groceries. Everything they need should be within walking distance. Arjun leaned forward, completely absorbed now. That's incredible. Transit-oriented development with mixed-use zoning. Are you incorporating commercial spaces on the ground floors? Exactly that. And we're using modular construction techniques to keep costs down without compromising on quality. Mira paused, studying his face. We need a project coordinator. Someone young, energetic, who actually understands what these communities need. Someone who won't just push papers but will spend time on site, talk to families, adjust designs based on real feedback. The car suddenly felt smaller. Was she offering him a job? No, that couldn't be it. People like Mira Kapoor didn't hire people they met at train stations. That only happened in movies. That sounds like an amazing opportunity for whoever gets it, Arjun said carefully. Mira smiled. It could be. But here's the thing, Arjun. I can't just hand you a job. That's not how my firm works. We have processes, standards, a whole HR department that would quit if I started hiring random people I met while missing trains. Arjun felt his brief moment of hope deflate. Of course. He'd been stupid to even imagine it might be different. However, Mira continued, we're holding a competitive selection process in 2 weeks. We're looking for someone to fill this project coordinator position, and we're interviewing candidates who have the right mix of technical knowledge and practical understanding. I can make sure your application gets reviewed. I can ensure you get a fair shot at presenting your ideas. But from there, it's entirely on merit. No shortcuts, no favoritism. You'll be competing against people with IIT degrees, people with more experience, people with connections. If you want this, you'll have to earn it. I understand, Arjun said, his mind already racing. 2 weeks. He had 2 weeks to prepare something good enough to compete with the best candidates in the field. What would I need to present? We're asking all candidates to propose a design solution for one aspect of the project. It could be the housing units themselves, the community spaces, the water management system, the waste management approach, whatever speaks to you. But it needs to be practical, cost-effective, and genuinely innovative. We don't want textbook solutions. We want ideas that show you understand both the technical requirements and the human element. The car was entering Pune now, navigating through increasing traffic. Prakash honked at a bus that cut too close, muttering something under his breath about drivers these days. I'll do it, Arjun said. I'll prepare the best presentation I can. And thank you truly for giving me this chance. Even if I don't get selected, just having the opportunity to try means everything. Mira nodded approvingly. Good. I'll have my assistant send you the project brief and requirements by tomorrow evening. Study it thoroughly. Visit similar communities if you can. Talk to people. Show us something real. They pulled up in front of a modern medical building with glass walls and neat landscaping. Mira checked her watch, 11:20. 10 minutes to spare. This is where I get off, she said, gathering her things. Then she paused and looked at Arjun. Where do you need to go? Arjun hadn't thought about that. He'd been so focused on the conversation that he'd forgotten he was now in Pune with no real purpose. The original interview was definitely over by now. I'll just catch a bus back to Mumbai, he said. Or maybe the train this afternoon. Nonsense. Prakash will drop you wherever you need to go. It's already paid for. She wrote something on a business card and handed it to him. This is my direct number. If you have questions about the project brief, call me. Not too often, mind you, but genuine questions are fine. She opened the car door, then turned back one more time. Arjun, let me tell you something. I've been in this industry for 23 years. I've met thousands of engineers, architects, and planners. Most of them know how to design buildings. Very few of them understand why they're designing those buildings in the first place. You get it. Don't lose that. And then she was gone, walking quickly toward the building entrance where a young woman who must be Ananya was waiting anxiously. Prakash turned around from the driver's seat. Where to, sir? Arjun sat there for a moment, feeling like the last 3 hours had been some kind of dream. But the business card in his hand was real. The contact information Mira had promised to send was real. This opportunity was real, sir, Prakash prompted again. Just let me think for a minute, Arjun said. Then he pulled out his phone and called his mother. She answered on the first ring. Arjun, beta, how was the interview? I've been waiting to hear from you. Ma, I missed the train. There was a brief silence. Then his mother's gentle voice, oh, beta. I'm so sorry. Are you okay? And that's when Arjun realized he was more than okay. He told his mother everything about missing the train, about meeting Mira, about the cab ride to Pune, about the new opportunity. He could hear the relief and hope creeping back into her voice as he talked. So you have 2 weeks to prepare? She asked. 2 weeks. It's going to be intense, Ma. I'll need to really focus. Then you'll focus. We'll all help. Priya can help you with the presentation. I'll make sure you eat properly and don't stay up all night like you usually do. And beta, this is better than the other job anyway. This is the kind of work you actually want to do. She was right. The job he'd been rushing to this morning would have been fine. A paycheck, a start. But this project with Kapoor and Associates, this was what he'd dreamed about in college. This was the kind of work that actually mattered. After hanging up with his mother, Arjun directed Prakash to drop him at the Pune railway station. He wanted to get back to Mumbai as soon as possible and start preparing. The afternoon train would get him home by evening. On the train ride back, Arjun couldn't stop thinking about the morning's strange turn of events. If he'd caught that 6:45 train, he would have gone to his interview, probably gotten a standard junior engineer position, and never met Mira Kapoor. He would never have learned about this project. His life would have gone in a completely different direction. Missing that train, which had felt like the worst thing that could happen, had actually opened a door he didn't even know existed. When he got home that evening, his mother and Priya were waiting for him. The tiny kitchen table was cleared off and Priya had her laptop ready. "Okay," his sister said with determination. "Tell us everything about this project. Let's start preparing." The next 2 weeks were unlike anything Arjun had experienced before. Mira's assistant sent him the detailed project brief the next day, along with access to some of their preliminary research and site surveys. Arjun printed everything out and covered one wall of his bedroom with papers, creating a visual map of the project. During the day, he visited slum areas in Mumbai, talking to residents about their daily challenges. He learned that women often had to walk long distances to fetch water, that children had nowhere safe to play, that tiny apartments got unbearably hot in summer because of poor ventilation and lack of trees. These weren't just statistics in a report anymore. These were real problems affecting real people. One elderly woman in a cramped tenement told him, "We don't need fancy things, Beta. We just need homes that don't leak when it rains. And enough space so my grandchildren can do their homework without sitting on top of each other." That conversation changed everything for Arjun. He scrapped his initial design and started over, this time focusing on dignity and practicality, rather than trying to impress with complex innovations. His sister Priya helped him create the presentation slides, insisting on simple, clear graphics rather than the elaborate 3D renders he'd initially planned. "You want them to focus on your ideas, not on fancy pictures," she said. His mother, despite her health issues, made sure he ate 3 meals a day and didn't burn himself out. She'd bring him tea late at night when he was still working, and gently remind him to sleep. Arjun also called Mira just once, to clarify a technical specification. She answered promptly, explained what he needed to know, and asked how his preparation was going. "Honestly, I'm terrified," he admitted. "I keep thinking about the other candidates with their impressive degrees and experience." "Good," Mira said, surprising him. "Fear means you care. Just remember why you're doing this. Not to beat other candidates, but to solve real problems for real people. Keep that focus and your presentation will be genuine. That matters more than any degree." Finally, the day arrived. The presentation was scheduled at Kapoor and Associates' office in Mumbai, a sleek building in the business district that Arjun had only ever seen from the outside. He wore the same shirt he'd ironed for that missed interview, though it felt like that had happened months ago, rather than just 2 weeks. His folder was packed with his presentation materials, backup printed copies in case the projector failed, handouts for the panel, everything organized and ready. His mother hugged him before he left. "Whatever happens today, Beta, I'm proud of you. You've worked so hard." Priya gave him a fist bump. "You've got this, Bhaiya. Go show them what you're made of." Arjun arrived 30 minutes early. The reception area was modern and minimalist, with award plaques on the walls showcasing the firm's achievements. He sat in a leather chair, watching other candidates arrive. They all looked confident, polished, exactly like people who belonged in places like this. His hands were sweating. His heart was pounding. But underneath the nervousness, there was also excitement. This was his shot, and he was ready to take it. The waiting area gradually filled up with candidates. Arjun counted 5 others, all looking impressively qualified. The guy sitting 2 seats away from him had a portfolio from IIT Bombay visible in his lap. Another woman was reviewing notes that referenced projects she'd worked on in Singapore and Dubai. These weren't just fresh graduates like him. These were professionals with real experience, real credentials. Arjun focused on his breathing, trying to calm his racing heart. He thought about the elderly woman from the slum who'd talked about her grandchildren needing space to do homework. He thought about his mother, his sister, about all the families who would live in the homes that would eventually be built. This wasn't just about getting a job. This was about doing something meaningful. A smartly dressed woman emerged from the conference room. "Arjun Sharma?" He was being called first. He gathered his materials and followed her down a corridor lined with photos of completed projects. The conference room was spacious with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. A panel of 4 people sat behind a long table. Mira was there, but she sat at the far end, maintaining her professional distance. "Good morning, Arjun," said a man in his 60s with graying hair. "I'm Vikram Malhotra, senior partner here. We've received your application and reviewed your academic credentials. Today we want to see how you think about practical problems. You'll have 20 minutes to present your proposal, and then we'll have questions. Ready?" "Yes, sir. Thank you for this opportunity." Arjun set up his laptop and pulled up his presentation. His hands were shaking slightly as he connected the cable to the projector, but once his first slide appeared on the screen, something shifted inside him. This was his chance to show what he could do. "Good morning, everyone. For this project, I chose to focus on the housing unit design itself, specifically how we can maximize livability while minimizing costs." He clicked to the next slide, showing a simple floor plan. This is a 450 square foot unit designed for a family of 4. Before I explain the design, let me share what I learned from visiting 3 different slum communities over the past 2 weeks. He talked about the grandmother who needed space for her grandchildren to study. He mentioned the woman who explained how poorly ventilated homes made her children sick every summer. He discussed the father who showed him how their current living space had no privacy, how teenage daughters had nowhere to change clothes except behind a curtain. These conversations taught me that affordable housing isn't about building cheap boxes. It's about creating dignified homes where families can actually live, not just survive. The panel was listening intently. Arjun walked them through his design choices. Cross-ventilation that would reduce the need for fans and air conditioning, a small balcony that doubled as a drying space and a place for growing herbs or vegetables, modular storage built into the walls to maximize floor space, a bathroom design that separated the toilet from the bathing area, allowing multiple family members to use the facilities without conflict. Everything in this design serves a practical purpose based on real family needs, he explained. The estimated cost per unit is 15% below the current budget allocation, achieved not by compromising on quality, but by making smart material choices and eliminating unnecessary elements. He showed detailed cost breakdowns, material specifications, and comparisons with similar projects. Then he addressed the environmental aspect. Each building would have a rainwater harvesting system connected to a community garden. Residents can grow vegetables, which reduces food costs and creates a shared space for neighbors to interact. The rooftop is designed to accommodate solar panels, which can be added in Phase 2 once initial occupancy is established. When he reached the final slide, Arjun took a breath and looked directly at the panel. This project has the potential to become a model for affordable housing across India. But only if we remember who we're building for. Not statistics or census numbers, but real families with real dreams. "Thank you." The room was quiet for a moment. Then Vikram leaned forward. "Interesting approach. Let me ask you this. You've reduced cost by 15%, but housing board regulations require us to meet certain minimum specifications. How do you ensure compliance while maintaining your cost savings?" Arjun was ready for this. He'd spent hours researching regulations. "Sir, if you look at Annexure 3 in the handout, I've mapped every design element against the current housing board norms. The cost savings come primarily from 3 areas: using locally sourced materials instead of imported ones, modular construction that reduces labor time, and eliminating decorative elements that add cost but not functionality. We're meeting every technical requirement, just doing it more efficiently." Another panelist, a woman with sharp eyes, asked, "You mentioned community gardens. That sounds nice in theory, but in practice, who maintains them? What happens when residents don't cooperate?" "That's a valid concern," Arjun acknowledged. "Based on my research, community spaces fail when they're imposed from the top down. The solution is to involve residents from day one. During the construction phase itself, form a residents' committee. Let them decide how the garden should be organized, what should be grown, how maintenance will be shared. When people have ownership over a space, they take care of it." The questions continued for another 15 minutes, each one probing a different aspect of his proposal. Arjun answered some confidently, admitted uncertainty on others, and suggested ways to research solutions he didn't immediately have. Throughout it all, Mira sat quietly, her expression neutral and professional. Finally, Vikram said, "Thank you, Arjun. We'll let you know our decision within a week." Arjun packed up his materials and left the room, his legs feeling like jelly. He had no idea if he'd done well or poorly. The panel's faces had been so difficult to read. In the reception area, the other candidates were still waiting. The IIT guy went in next, then the woman with international experience. Arjun sat there for a while, watching them go in and come out, each looking either confident or nervous. Impossible to tell who had performed better. Finally, he decided to leave. There was nothing more he could do now. The presentation was done. His fate was in someone else's hands. He was halfway to the elevator when he heard footsteps behind him. "Arjun, wait." It was Mira walking quickly down the corridor. "I can't discuss the selection process, that wouldn't be appropriate. But I wanted to tell you that you did well in there. Really well. Thank you for this opportunity, ma'am. Regardless of the outcome, these 2 weeks pushed me to think deeper about what I want to do with my career." Mira smiled. "How's your mother doing? And Priya?" "They're good. Ma's health is stable and Priya is acing her exams. They both helped me prepare for today, actually. That doesn't surprise me. You seem like someone who values family." She paused. "Go home, Arjun. Try not to overthink the presentation. What's done is done. You'll hear from us soon." The next 5 days were torture. Arjun tried to keep busy, even attending the phone interview for the Pune construction job he'd missed weeks ago. It went fine, but his heart wasn't in it anymore. That opportunity felt small now compared to what he'd presented at Kapoor and Associates. Priya kept telling him he'd definitely get it. His mother was more cautious, reminding him that sometimes things don't work out as planned, and that's okay too. But Arjun could see the hope in her eyes. She wanted this for him as much as he wanted it for himself. On the 6th day, his phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello? Arjun, this is Vikram Malhotra from Kapoor and Associates." His heart stopped. This was it. "I'm calling to inform you that after careful consideration and review of all presentations, we'd like to offer you the position of project coordinator for the Navi Mumbai affordable housing development." Arjun couldn't breathe. He couldn't speak. His mind went completely blank. "Arjun? Are you there?" "Yes, sir." "Sorry, yes, I'm here. I don't know what to say." "Thank you so much. Your presentation was outstanding. Not just technically sound, but it showed genuine understanding of the community we're serving. That's rare. We'd like you to start as soon as possible. My assistant will send over the offer letter today. Welcome to the team." After the call ended, Arjun just sat there on his bed staring at the phone in his hand. Then he started laughing, a sound of pure relief and joy that brought his mother running from the kitchen. "Beta? What happened?" "I got it, Ma, I got the job." His mother's eyes filled with tears. She hugged him tight and Arjun realized she was shaking. All the stress of the past 6 months, all the worry about bills and Priya's education and the future, it was finally lifting. Priya came home from college an hour later, and they celebrated with sweets from the neighborhood shop. It wasn't a fancy celebration, just the 3 of them in their small apartment, but it was perfect. 3 months later, Arjun stood at Mumbai's railway station, Platform 3, the same platform where his life had changed. He was there for a site visit to Navi Mumbai, and he had a first-class ticket this time, with plenty of time before departure. As he waited, he saw a young woman running desperately toward a departing train, her dupatta flying behind her. She reached the platform just as the train pulled away, and her shoulders slumped in defeat.